Okay, today we will discuss about serialization and deserialization. So before we go to this theoretical part, let's see that what actually the serialization and what serialization is doing for us. You see that the moment serialization in the sense it is an interface. What type of interface? It is a marker interface. What do you mean by marker interface? Which does not have any data members and methods. What do you mean by that? No data members and method. How that can be work interface? See, right now we're seeing this interface having a variables, right, and the methods. That's what we call as a normal interface or generic interface. But in serialization interface, we do not have any of these either variables or methods. Then we call it as a empty interface or marker interface. So this serialization is nothing but an empty interface which does not have anything inside in it. Then what is the purpose of serialization? The purpose of serialization is if you want to convert your state of an object into a form such that it byte stream that can be used to persist or to transport to save that data into a file or into the database. If you want to pass that object over a network, then we go for serialization interface. We have to implement that. We means our class which class object is going to save into the file or pass to the network or database. That class has to implement this serialization. But you can say that what definition is that the serialization is a process of converting the state of an object into a byte stream. Mean it is converting the state of an object into a byte stream means what? As you know, the byte code, right? The byte stream means it convert our object state, means our actual object into a byte stream. Why do we need to convert into the byte stream? Because when we are sending that object over the network, then network cannot understand human readable language, right? It can understand only byte. If you convert to the byte stream, right, then it will smoothly pass to that. And also it is security purpose. When you are when you are transmitting the object from one place to another place, so that your object is safe, no one can see your data, which means it looks like the data is encrypted format. Like encrypted is not actually encrypted, it looks the encrypted format. But if I see that, as you are saying that serialization is a marker interface, it does not have anything. But what is how our object is converting into byte stream? Yes, that's question. Who is doing this one? The JVM is take care of this one. Means if our class implements serialization in the sense, then you are expecting a special behavior, special operation on that. So the JVM knows that any class that implements this serialization will automatically provide that additional functionality, provide that special functionality. That the JVM will look at that. Okay, so this guy is implementing the serialization. Oh, I know that. What is the default behavior? What is that special type of functionality that the class can achieve? So I will provide that. Like that, the JVM will come into picture and provide that additional special functionality. So how do you know that? Let's see that hands-on first. Now, first create our class, any class. Okay, let's create one class. No need to create an interface. That serialization comes from java.io.package. I will show you that. We can create any class type my customer. Okay, customer. What we do have this? Let's say we already have a class that is declared. Let me. Okay, I already have created one class which already customer is there. Now let's see. Now let's first we will have this. Okay, customer object. Forget about implementing serialization. Now what I am trying to do here, we have three fields like customer ID, name, and location. Now I am trying to save this data into a file. Now, let's take that one scenario, saving that data into file. So how you do that? To save the data, right? You have to use that stream classes. What the stream class is, that file output stream. Output is nothing but we are outputting our data to outside, means we are sending data to outside system. Outside, that can be a file or database or anything. So this is called a destination. To this destination, the file, means this is the file, right? This destination is of type file. That's the reason we are using file, and we are outputting, that means we are sending the data out. Just see that the description of this: create a file output stream to write to the file with the specified name. Means it outputs the data to the specified file name, which means the file which you have specified it here. And this file, with the help of for object output stream, then you can write that object to the file. Without object output stream, then you cannot do, right? It just let you know that you can write that data to this specific file with the help of object output stream. That's what we have it here. It the serialization uses write object method of object output stream, and for deserialization we use read object of object input stream, that we see in the next lecture. This now, what is the first step here? Now create an object customer. Now we have a customer constructor with these three fields. Now what we are doing now, we are passing those values, right? Customer ID, name, and the location. With the help of file output stream and object output stream, we have constructed our format, and we are writing object output stream. We are writing an object. What object? This is the user defined a custom object. Then you see the next two lines, right? Once we have any streams that are open, as a best practice, you must have to close this, otherwise, right, that's file object and file object output stream are still open. If you have number of file connections open, what's happened is you will get a connection issues. So as a best practice, as a developer, must have close all the connections that are open. That you can do it manually. It's here, and using finally block also here, right? That we discussed during exception handling. This there is a finally block call, right? There you go and create this. So for this you have to do this, declare this outside, right? That we will discuss in detail when we are discussing exception handling. No worry about this. Okay, now see what is our concept is serialization. Now, the moment I say how this object gets serialized is the data we are sending is in this human readable language, right? Now, here the file is already placed it here. Now delete this existing, remove. Now run this file. What you do, this run as Java application. What you could say that, could say the exception, right? Java.io not serializable exception, which means you are writing a file, we are sending a file to the file output stream, file console, but however your object is not, your class is not implement serialization. So this is the reason we get exception, right? If you are just transforming the object from one one class to another class for internal interactions, right? For internal transaction, you no need to do all this stuff. Right here we are sending to different location, that the file system, right? It is an external source. So that is the reason you have to implement serialization. See, serializable. You see this one, you just go inside and see this, it is a interface. What interface? It's a marker interface. Marker interface, nothing but a empty interface. It does not have anything. You could see this one, it does not have anything except just interface name. You can see nowhere the method or nothing. You see the packages, package.io. So that's why it is a marker interface, and this is the reason we can say it does not have anything inside. Now let's see your class gets implement serialization. What happens now? You could not see this error at this moment. You could say this run as Java application. Now object is serialized, and where the serialized object is placed, as we have given the file output stream to where the data gets output. Here you just click here and you see this is called as a stream. It means it converting the state of an object to a byte stream. This is something exact similar to our .java file to .class file. How you do that? Once you convert .java file to .class file, you could see this type of coding. So that we can see it here. Go to properties and see here where this project is located. Let's see what is this package holding. Okay, take core. Take is for that. Okay. This is called our Java serialization. Okay, just open with Node Plus. Let's see this one, right? This is called a bytecode. As you see in our state of an object also, it looks similar to that, right? This is called a stream object. So this is how your object object output stream write the data to your file with the help of this object. Now one more concept here. As now up to here this is fine. Now what happens in future? Okay, sorry, now we are done with the serialization. Now once you serialize this object, someone, the other end user and some on the other place, that whoever wants to access this object, right, then again they have to deserialize this one, right? They cannot read the data what is it in this file, because you are sending this to some other guy through network. Once you are serialized your object, right, someone has to use this data. How do they use that data? Using deserialization they can use, right? What deserialization method do that? It use that read object method of object input stream. Now during serialization what we have done, right, we have output. That means we are when we are writing something, right, we have to use the output streams. Now this time we are reading the existing file, means which is the input to us. So that is the file, and input stream means we are reading the stream. What stream? Input stream. What is that type? Is file input stream. We are reading that file. That is the reason we have to use file input stream. Why input stream? Is it is a type of file object, and it is a stream of input. Then once you read that, then you have to use that, pass that parameter to object input stream. Means we have to convert that input stream to our object. Then your object input stream is ready to cast to account to your object. What is our object? Is our customer is our object. So we have to use read object using this file input stream. There is a method. You could see as we have a number of method, but however all these are not equal. Read byte, read char, all these things will come later. Means we'll discuss about this in the upcoming lecture when during discussion of this IO stream classes. Now let's go with this object. Read object means it says that read the entire object and cast this one. In case, right, if you do not have the matching parameter, matching values, right, then this deserialization will fail. You are converting this to this object. This object should be same as that what we have serialized. During serialization, what object we serialize, right, that has to be here used here. If you don't use this one, right, this cannot find. Means it says cannot cast this object to this given class file. So hope clear about that. And let's see now this again the same thing here. Once you open input in a stream, right, again we are closing it. Now let's run this thing and see what you could see here. See now object is deserialized. From this object, right, file, I am able to read the customer name of that date means I am able to read some part of the data. Like that you can have this means your customer is holding, your customer object is holding entire data, because using read object we completely read that data and populate it to our custom object. So this is how you can serialize and deserialize our classes and objects. And the main concept is, as everyone knows that the definition of that, and they can, you were not able to write such programs like this, so you must have to know the definition of that. Simply knowing the definition also will not work. You have to understand that how serialization is working, what is the purpose of this serialization, right? You should be able to write the program also, right? Just knowing the definition, serialization is a process of converting the state of an object into a byte stream, right, to pass over the network, database, file system, etc., right? That is what the definition is. Most of the beginning level says that. But in addition to that, you have to understand in depth what it means, how it is working, right? What we discussed is not only enough. This is just only serialization and deserialize of your object. But there is one thing that you must know that, right, during right, when suppose you have a class now, this now later, right, once you serialize this class, right, what happens now, if someone adds some new field called address, now I have added a new field address. The other guy, Java deserialization, whoever is using this object, when they try to deserialize that, they will get an exception, because what happens, right, java.io.invalid cast invalid class exception, which means the object you serialized here is not matching to the original object. In the original object, you have two fields, so four fields, but here in this serialized object, you have only three fields, which means it is not able to identify. Why it is saying it is not able to identify? Because you could see this local class incompatible. How do you say local class incompatible? Internally, this serialization uses the ID, serial version ID. When it serialize the first time, the moment you serialize this object, it having this version is this one. Later, when again you deserialize that, every time the JVM keep generating a new serial version ID. So it is failed to compare that, because your object state is changed here, right? You added a new field. If you don't new field and if you run a number of times, it doesn't matter. It gives any error. Let's see that one. Now I removed it back and see I run n number of times, then I don't see any error, because my current object, my object state is still same. Now, when somebody adds the new field, then state of an object is right change. Your class is completely changed compared to this, which already serialized. That is the reason this guy will not be able to identify that. Here, your class, right, it generate a new serialization, new serial version ID, and this having a another serial version ID. So both are not matching. So that is the reason you could see the exception as invalid class, means class is not valid. It is not saying the class is not found. That it is invalid, means the one which you have already serialized in is not matching to the one which already, which is the compared to the latest. So this is how you can get exceptions like this. Okay, up to here this is fine. Now what we do, what is the solution to address this? Yes, we have a solution. You could see this one, there is a warning symbol. You see the serializable class customer does not declare a static final serial version field or type like whatever, right? So it is saying that you have to use either default serial ID or generated serial ID, right? You could see these two options are available. Again, here is a question comes here, which one I can use? Okay, let's do, okay, we will check both one by one. Okay, right now, okay, remove this one. first let's go with the default serial version ID. Default serial version ID is the one, it is always generates with one ID, it never be changing. Now this time you just serialize your class and see this. Now the object is serialized. Again you can get the deserialized object successfully. Again we go back to the same thing, add a new field. Okay, how I have added a new field. Now what I'm trying to add a deserialize that object, right? Now it is successful. Now if you go this and change this, right, it is a default serial version and it is always one. If you use this one, then there are another class which implement this serial with the same serial ID. It is inconsistent, so we don't use this serial version ID. You have a auto generated serial version ID, right? You can see this one, this auto generated serial version ID, it is the unique to all the classes. If you have a number of classes, right, then this auto generated serial version ID will be helpful to you to identify no matter how many times you have right, how you change the state of your class, then this will be static. If you don't use this serial version ID, what happens, the JVM internally generate that new serial version ID every time when someone is accessing or when someone is deserializing your object. Then the serial version ID generated while serializing the object and the new serialized object, new serialized ID will not match and you will never be able to deserialize. Now this case, you see this one, now we already have serialized, sorry. Now we have added a generated serial ID. Now you can see object is serialized and you can serialize successfully. Again deserialize. Now later, right, if you add a new field in earlier steps, then we are getting an exception. Now this time we don't get any exception. However, I'm not serialized this one, right? But is still trying to access the same object, right? Java is sorry, you don't need to serialize this. Okay, just remove this and serialize this one. Okay, this is serialized successfully. Now just deserialize, you should be able to access that. Now don't serialize this one. I just change the state of an object and just directly deserialize this one. You could see it is still working. So this is the magic of serial version array. Any class that implements serializable interface must provide this serial version ID. Otherwise, right, changing the state of an object, state of your class will not be able to will not available while during deserialization. And one thing here, you could see this, it is a private and static final. Why this is private static final? No, make sure no one should change it and change the value. This column final and static is one time. This is one time for an entire so application level means once the serial version ID is generated until the next time when your application gets start, then the serial version ID will be holding that. Means it is up to the entire class level. No, again, no need to change every time that the serial version ID is static. As static, you know the meaning of static context, right? And this is a long value because you see this, it is such a big value. If you try to change something in 12, right, then you could see error because integer cannot hold such a big lengthy number. Say type mismatch cannot convert from long to int. So this is the value of type long. So that is the reason you have to use long. This automatically comes to you, no worry, right? If you generate this one, right, you see 278L. Now generate a new serial version ID. You could see this one, it is every time it is changing, means the JVM this help you to generate this internally. Now here this library help us to generate a new serial version ID every time when you run. And if you place this one, you will save that serial version numbers also. If you don't save this one, right, then you will lose the serial version ID every time the JVM is keep creating a new serial version ID. Also, then that invalid class exceptions will come. So this is how about the serialization and deserialization. Always remember things that it's not only knowing the definition, right? The definition is simple. It is just a one line of that. Serialization is process of converting the state of an object into a form. What form it is? A byte stream. So that can be persisted or transported. Persisted means what? It can be saved to the database or it can be saved to the our file system, and it mainly use this Hibernate or MI and JPA, EJB, and JMS technologies are called Java messaging services. So this is how and where we are using serialization. Now, one thing you can see, this serialization and deserialization process is a platform independent, which means, right, you can serialize an object in one place and deserialization on a different platform, which means, right, because you know, as we are already it says in the definition, right, to when we are sending to network or any other file system, right, then this serializable interface will help you. That is the reason we say it is a platform independent. Because of this concept only, we are transmitting or transforming the object, right, from one place to another place, right? So you serialize that object in one JVM, right, in your system, that assume, and you can access, you can deserialize that in different system. So it is not dependent on the platform, no matter where you have serialized that one. So it can be easily deserializable in different platform. Now, one more concept also it is here. Let's now here your class is contains all the instance variable. Let's assume I have a field called private string address. Now I don't want this field to be serializable. Means I don't want this field to send to outside network. I don't want to share this value when your object is serialized, but however, I still can protect, I prevent not to serialize this type of fields because there is something secure about this data. I don't want to share this. Means I don't want to serialize this one. That case, what you do, you can mark these values as transient. As you could see, this is a transient field. So the moment you declare transient is right. Sorry, annotation transient field. So this transient field is an untrace. What's a transient marks it? Okay, so you mark, if you say this transient, the transient which says that this field cannot be serialized. So however you have the data holding it here, but this field cannot be serialized. Now so let's see that how this works. Where is our serialization class here? And now generate shader getter methods for all this, as this having only three things. Now just create a constructor to pass the values. Constructor using files. Go here and pass that additional value, Bangalore. Okay, now up to here, this is fine. Now what happens that then try to serialize this class. Now once you serialize this class, then you have that object gets serialized. Then other end, I am trying to deserialize. Instead of, in addition to the name, I will trying to get the address of this customer. Okay, now try to deserialize this and could see this. what happens? Three, you are not getting that value, which means that you are getting null. Why? I said that transient. However, you have the data that holding in this field, but you are restricting, you are protecting this data not to serialize, not to send it outside along with other fields. So this is how we can protect, I can prevent the specific fields, required fields, not to serialize during serialization process. So this is call it as a transient. Transient is nothing but it's make use of restriction, right? It's not like a final. Transient will help you. It helps you to do only temporary operations. It will not participate in during serialization or deserialization also. So if it's not participated in the serialization, in the sense, obviously it is not there in the deserialization also. But you still say customer dot get address, this field is still there, but the value during serialization is not passed, it is not sent. That is why we simply get an null instead of exception. This will not cause any exception. It simply returns the value null. So this is the magic of this serialization. Like this, we have another marker interface also, like clonable interface is there, right? That's all what the clonable interface do. That's also cloning the current object, means copying the current object. That is also a marker interface that does not have any methods. Make sure and remember always that if any interview question raised here, what is a marker interface? As we know the definition, it is a empty interface. It does not have any methods, any data members, member variables, nothing. But if you don't have any methods, what is the intention that your class implement this serialization, how it is behaving? You no need to worry about that one. That JVM is providing this additional capabilities, right? We doesn't know what actually internally the JVM is doing, right? There is no answer such like that. You can, our answer is such that when our class implements this marker interfaces, JVM provides those special or additional capabilities to behave our object such a way according to the marker interface that our class implements. So that is serializable or clonable or some other clone marker interfaces. So that's what we can answer, right? Make sure always remember things that when we are serializing an object must, right, override, you must write this serial version ID, otherwise later you will get exceptions at some point of time. That the most of the developers not aware of this invalid class. What is that invalid class exception? Also some people are not aware of that if they are at the beginning level. So always make sure as a best practice and as a mandatory, you must have to write this one. Writing of the serial version ID prevent your class to help you to fail during deserialization. Also, it shows the generating of the serial version ID. Every time it keeps generating a new serial version ID. If you have static ID here, right, you can save the number of serial version IDs, because every time when our class is accessing, right, every time keep generating. In real time scenario, it can be accessible some hundreds, thousands of times, right? So that many serial version IDs are generating. So we can avoid like this also. That is the reason you can have this serial version ID here. Hope you are clear about this concept. Please let's do hands-on at least one round so that you will remember what exactly it is, how exactly it is working. Without doing hands-on, you cannot remember things. If doing hands-on, right, please, it will always be in your mind.